This is SOSF. Alright, buckle up, people. We're about to talk about a Harvard professor who thinks we're being visited by aliens, and his friends in the science world are trying to burn him at the stake for it. This whole story is completely wild. The man of the hour is Avi Loeb. And look, this isn't some random dude shouting on a street corner with a tinfoil hat. We're not talking about some guy who saw a blurry light after 3 too many beers. This is a heavyweight. A legit, certified genius. We're talking about a theoretical physicist from Harvard. This isn't just a professor. He was the chair of the astronomy department there for nearly a decade, from 2011 to 2020. That's a position of immense power and respect. He founded the Black Hole Initiative at Harvard, a group dedicated to studying the weirdest, most powerful objects in the universe. This is a guy whose brain operates on a different level. His predictions about black holes, like the shadow of that monster black hole in the M87 galaxy, the one that looks like a fiery donut? Loeb and his colleagues predicted what that would look like years before the Event Horizon Telescope, a global network of telescopes, finally snapped that famous picture in 2019. He's got awards, he's on presidential councils for science and technology. He is the real deal. A mainstream, respected, establishment pillar of the scientific community. And that's what makes this whole thing so wild. Because this pillar of the establishment, this brilliant Harvard professor, is now the world's most famous and most controversial alien hunter. And he's not talking about fuzzy radio signals from a distant star, like in the movie Contact. He's not talking about maybe, someday. He's saying, loud and clear, that he believes we have seen, and are currently seeing, hard evidence of alien technology inside our own solar system. Right now, as you can imagine, this has gone over like a lead balloon with his colleagues. The scientific community, the very people he used to lead, are basically saying he's lost his mind. One astrophysicist at Arizona State, a guy named Steve Desch, said Loeb is polluting good science, with this ridiculous sensationalism and that it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. That's not a friendly disagreement. That's a public takedown. It shows you how deep this divide is. It's a civil war in astrophysics. So what the hell is going on? How did a top Harvard astronomer end up in a scientific civil war, branded as a heretic? It all started in 2017, with a visitor from out of town. Way out of town. This thing shows up, and astronomers flag it. It's an object, and they realize it's moving way too fast to be from around here. It's not bound by the sun's gravity. It's on a path that clearly came from another star system, whipped through our solar system, and is on its way back out, never to return. It's the first interstellar object we've ever seen. They name it Oumuamua, which is Hawaiian for scout. And right away, things get weird. First, the light reflecting off it is changing dramatically, by a factor of 10, as it tumbles. This suggests it has a really strange shape. It's not a round potato-shaped asteroid. To explain the light curve, it has to be either super long and thin, like a cigar, or, as Loeb later concluded, extremely flat, like a pancake or a saucer. Weird, but okay, maybe nature makes weird shapes, but that's not even the weirdest part. The weirdest part is that as it's leaving the solar system, as it's flying away from the sun, it starts to speed up. It's accelerating. It's being pushed by some mysterious, non-gravitational force. Now, with a comet, that happens all the time. The sun heats it up, ice on the surface turns to gas, and it shoots out like a rocket engine, a process called outgassing. It acts like a natural thruster, pushing the comet along. Simple. But here's the thing, Oumuamua had no tail. No cometary tail. No gas, no dust, nothing. Astronomers looked with everything they had. Nothing. So you've got this object that's being pushed by some mysterious force, like a rocket, but there's no visible rocket engine and no exhaust. The mainstream scientists scrambled to find an explanation. They had to find a natural one. Maybe it was made of solid nitrogen, like an iceberg from Pluto, and the nitrogen gas was invisible. Maybe it was a dark comet where the tail was just impossible to see. One paper suggested it was a cosmic dust bunny, a fluffy, porous object. The explanations got more and more exotic, more and more complicated, just to avoid the simplest one. This is where Avi Loeb steps in and says, hold on a second. You guys are twisting yourselves into pretzels to avoid the obvious. He likens it to a bunch of experts who only study zebras going to a zoo, seeing an elephant for the first time, and saying, oh, that's just a zebra without stripes. He's like, no, man, maybe it's a completely different animal. He proposes a radical idea. What if Oumuamua isn't a rock at all? What if its acceleration is caused by the pressure of sunlight pushing on it? Radiation pressure. We know this is real. For that to work, the object would have to be incredibly thin, lightweight, and have a large surface area. In other words, like a solar sail. A piece of technology designed to travel between stars, propelled by starlight itself. That's when the scientific world basically exploded. But Oumuamua was just the appetizer. It was small, the size of a football field. The main course, the object that has Loeb and the rest of the astronomy world in a full-blown food fight, showed up recently. Its name is 3I/Atlas. And if Oumuamua was weird, this thing is just bonkers. First off, this thing is huge. Absolutely massive. Loeb says it's at least 5 kilometers in diameter. That's the size of Manhattan Island. And based on its trajectory, he calculates its mass at a staggering 33 billion tons. That makes it at least 1,000,000 times more massive than Oumuamua. The statistical odds of a rock that big being randomly ejected from another star system and just happening to fly through ours are incredibly, vanishingly small. Loeb argues we should see millions of smaller Oumuamuas for every one of these giants, but we don't. This thing's very existence is a statistical nightmare. So you have this behemoth cruising into our solar system. And just like with Oumuamua, it starts showing off some seriously strange behavior. The first thing they notice is what Loeb calls the anti-tail. Everyone knows what a comet looks like, right? It's got a long, beautiful tail of dust and gas that always points away from the sun. Why? Because the sun is blasting out radiation and solar wind, and it literally blows the material off the comet's surface, pushing it backwards. It's simple physics. Well, the Hubble telescope gets a good look at this thing, and it has a glow, a jet of material, coming off it, but it's pointing towards the sun. It's completely backwards. It's like seeing a boat's wake in front of the boat. The comet experts said, "Oh, comets are strange, who knows, maybe it's big particles," but Loeb points out that given where the Earth and the object were, it couldn't be some kind of optical illusion. It was real. It had a tail coming out of its forehead. Then they get a look at what this tail is made of. And this is where it gets really nuts. They use spectroscopy, which is like a chemical fingerprint, to see what's in the gas. They find it's shedding a ton of nickel, but with very little, or maybe even no, iron. Now, in nature, nickel and iron are like cosmic brothers. They are forged together in the hearts of exploding stars. You find them together. Finding a natural object with a ton of nickel and no iron is incredibly, wildly rare. But you know where you do find high nickel, low iron materials? In alloys that we make right here on Earth for things like aerospace applications, for engine components, for things that need to be strong and resist heat. And to top it off, everyone assumed this thing must be a big ball of ice and water, like a typical comet. Some teams even rushed to publish papers saying, "We found water. It's a comet. Case closed." But then the James Webb Telescope, the most powerful telescope we've ever built, the $10 billion marvel, takes a hard look. And what does it find? It's only 4% water by mass. It's a dry, rocky, nickel-shedding monster with a backwards tail. All those initial "it's just a comet" claims were dead wrong. The final piece of the puzzle is its path. The trajectory it's taking is wild. It's lined up almost perfectly with the plane of our planets, something Loeb says has only a 1 in 500 chance of happening randomly. It's not coming in from some random angle, high up or low down. It's coming in flat, right where the planets are. And he notes that this path is ideal for it to release mini-probes as it swings past Mars and Jupiter. It's almost like it was designed to take a scenic tour of our solar system, to get a good look at all the interesting real estate. As if that wasn't weird enough, he even ran the numbers and found that the arrival direction of this object lines up, with a 99.4% improbability, with the location of the famous WOW signal, that powerful, unexplained radio blast we picked up back in 1977. The odds of that just being a coincidence are tiny. So, Loeb puts all this together, the insane size, the backwards tail, the industrial-like chemistry, the low water, the weirdly convenient trajectory, and he says, "Look, when you have this many anomalies, you have to at least consider the possibility that this isn't a rock." He tells this story about going on a blind date. The best thing to do is not to talk, not to assume you know who you're with. Just shut up and observe the other person, because they might be completely different from what you expect. You might even find yourself sitting across from a serial killer. He's saying astronomy is on an interstellar blind date right now. And the mainstream community is so convinced they're just meeting another boring rock that they're ignoring all the blinking red lights. This has led to what he calls a clash between two cultures in science. He came from cosmology, a field he calls the chess players. In cosmology, you're dealing with huge unknowns like dark matter and dark energy. Nobody knows what 95% of the universe is. So, you're rewarded for coming up with imaginative, creative ideas that can be tested. It's part of the job. But when he brought that mindset to the study of comets and asteroids, he says he ran into the mud wrestlers. He describes them as a community that is hostile to new ideas, afraid of risk, and more interested in defending their turf than exploring something truly new. Their careers are built on the "it's always a rock" model. An alien probe would upend everything they've ever worked for. He says the resistance he's facing is more than just scientific disagreement. It's personal. It's about protecting ego and funding. He tells a story about writing his first paper on 3I/Atlas. He had one sentence at the very end where he suggested that the only way to solve a paradox about the object's size was if it was deliberately targeting our solar system. He wrote, maybe the trajectory was designed. The editor of the scientific journal told him the paper would not be published unless he removed that single sentence. He had to take it out. He argues that this is the peer review system being used as a weapon, as a gatekeeper, to shut down discussion of uncomfortable ideas before it even starts. He says the worst part is the chilling effect it has on young scientists. The message from the establishment is clear. Stay in line, don't deviate from the beaten path, or you'll be ridiculed, branded a crank, and your career will be torched. By keeping the herd in a tight configuration, they risk missing the next great discovery, the next Copernican revolution, just to protect their own reputations. For Loeb, this isn't just about one weird rock. It's about a fundamentally different way of thinking about our place in the universe. He frames the whole search in terms of black swan events. These are things that have a very low probability of happening. But if they do, the consequences are enormous, world-changing. And he makes a very chilling and powerful analogy. He says, just think about October 7th. The Israeli intelligence agencies had a theory that Hamas will do nothing. And they got data that indicated something is going on. But they dismissed it because of their theory. His point is that dismissing weird data because it doesn't fit your preconceived notion is a recipe for a catastrophic intelligence failure. The scientific community's theory is that all interstellar objects must be rocks. He's worried they're dismissing the data that points to something else, and in doing so, are risking an intelligence failure of cosmic proportions. It's like a cosmic version of Pascal's wager. Pascal, the 17th century philosopher, said that even if you think the chance of God existing is tiny, the reward if you're right, heaven, is infinite. And the cost if you're wrong is nothing. So, the only logical bet is to believe. Loeb applies that to alien intelligence. The chances that 3I/Atlas is an alien probe might be small, but the impact if it is would be the single biggest discovery in human history. It would change everything: finance, religion, politics, our entire sense of self. The cost of looking and finding nothing is a little bit of time and money. The cost of not looking and being wrong is immeasurable. Underpinning all of this is a call for what he calls cosmic modesty. He says we humans are unbelievably arrogant. We live on a tiny speck of dust, a leftover piece of debris from the formation of our sun. We showed up in the last few seconds of the cosmic calendar. He says that arriving late to a play doesn't make you the star. He has this great analogy about his daughters. He said when they were little, at home, they thought they were the center of the universe, the smartest, most important people in the world. Then they went to their first day of kindergarten and realized the classroom was full of other kids, and some of them were even smarter. Loeb thinks humanity hasn't had its first day of kindergarten yet. We still think it's all about us. We're the bratty kid who thinks the entire universe revolves around us. And he says the scientists who refuse to even consider his ideas are making the exact same mistake the Vatican made when it put Galileo under house arrest for saying the Earth wasn't the center of everything. It's a refusal to accept data that challenges our own self-importance. But Loeb isn't just talking. He's not just writing angry blog posts. He's putting his money where his mouth is. Frustrated with the mainstream, he launched his own privately funded research group called the Galileo Project. The goal is simple. Instead of waiting for the government to declassify stuff, or arguing with the mud wrestlers, just go out and collect clean, open-source, high-quality scientific data. Be the chess player. And some of the stuff they're doing is straight out of a movie. Get this. They built a state-of-the-art observatory on top of the Sphere in Las Vegas. Seriously. On top of that giant LED eyeball in the desert. It's an array of infrared and visible light cameras that scan the sky 24/7. And they have two other identical setups about 10 kilometers away. So you have three sets of eyes looking at the same patch of sky. By triangulating the data, the same way your two eyes give you depth perception, they can pinpoint the exact distance, speed, and acceleration of anything that flies over Vegas. The software then sifts through millions of objects, birds, planes, drones, satellites, and flags, anything that moves in a way that our own technology, or nature, can't explain. He's also gone treasure hunting at the bottom of the ocean. Back in 2014, before Oumuamua, a small meteor entered our atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean. U.S. government satellites tracked it and realized it was interstellar. It was also incredibly tough. It held together way deeper in the atmosphere than any normal space rock, suggesting it was made of something much stronger than iron. After getting the U.S. Space Command to officially confirm its origin, Loeb raised $1.5 million and led an expedition to where it crashed. They dragged a giant magnetic sled across the seafloor, 2 kilometers down, and sifted through what they found. And they found these tiny molten droplets, spherules, less than a millimeter in size, and about 10% of them had a chemical composition that didn't match anything from our solar system. Of course, his critics immediately jumped on it. A story in the New York Times suggested they went to the wrong place, that the seismic signal they used to locate the crash site could have just been a truck driving by on a nearby island. Loeb had to write to the reporter and say, "Did you even talk to me? Our location was based on the fireball data from the government satellites, not the seismic signal." It's a perfect example of the mud wrestling he talks about. And maybe the most frustrating story of all is the unreleased image of 3I/Atlas. On October 2, 2023, the object made a close pass by Mars. And NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has an incredibly powerful camera called HiRISE, turned and took a picture. It is almost certainly the best, most detailed image of this object that exists. It could show its shape. It could show if it's a solid object or a cloud of debris. And we can't see it. The data has never been released. The picture was taken right after a US government shutdown started, so all of NASA's public communications were suspended. Loeb doesn't think it's a conspiracy to hide aliens. He just chalks it up to terrestrial stupidity. But the result is the same. The most important piece of evidence in this entire mystery is sitting on a hard drive somewhere, locked away by bureaucracy. So where does that leave us? We're in this absolutely fascinating, and kind of crazy, moment in history. You have one of the most credentialed scientists on the planet, a guy from the heart of the establishment, making claims that sound like they're from the opening scene of a sci-fi blockbuster. You have the rest of the scientific community trying to brand him as a heretic. And in the middle of it all, you have these mysterious objects from other star systems, behaving in ways we just can't explain. Loeb's argument is that the stakes are just too high to be timid. He believes that finding alien intelligence isn't just a cool scientific discovery, it could be essential for our own survival. He looks at the news and sees a species that is screwing up the world. He thinks a discovery, finding out that there's a smarter kid on the block, would give us a desperately needed dose of humility and maybe even a role model to learn from. It's a powerful idea. We're spending trillions of dollars on military budgets to fight each other, while he's arguing the real threat, or opportunity, might come from out there. We are on the cusp of a new era. New telescopes, like the Rubin Observatory in Chile, are coming online, and they're expected to find a new interstellar object every few months. The traffic is picking up. We're going to be getting a lot more visitors. The question is, will we be ready to greet them with an open mind? Or will we dismiss them as just another rock, because that's the safer, easier answer? Is Avi Loeb a modern-day Galileo, fighting against an arrogant orthodoxy to show us our true place in the cosmos? Or is he a brilliant scientist who has fallen in love with a beautiful idea and is seeing patterns where there are none? Right now, nobody knows for sure. The only thing that's certain is that he's forced us all to look up at the sky and wonder. We're living inside the movie right now, and the final reel hasn't played out yet. So, I'll leave you with a thought to chew on. Loeb talks about the possibility of finding technological debris on Mars or the Moon, which he calls museums because their lack of atmosphere preserves things for billions of years. But what if we're thinking about technology all wrong? We're looking for metal, right angles, and radio signals. That's our technology. But what if a civilization a billion years older than us has technology that's biological, or has merged with biology? What if their probes aren't spaceships but are more like cosmic seeds, designed to look and act just like a natural comet, perfectly camouflaged, quietly gathering data while we sit here arguing about its chemical composition? If the most advanced technology is indistinguishable from nature, how would we even begin to look for it? See you next time.